I'm kind of wondering if that's going to, like, you know, block my block the stream or something. So I'm going to stop now. But I couldn't pass that up because, Howler, werewolves and all that. So welcome to the show. This is only going to be a short half-an-hour one. I got to get back to writing. I got to get a 30-page script to my artist and make sure that I actually reads well, because I had a problem this week where I wrote myself into a corner after writing 50 pages. So welcome, Mr. Mars himself, the Wolfman, as he's known in the DJ circles and on the vinyl scene, I should say. Welcome. Now, just found out that if you guys need any services to do it, writing and stuff, hit up Mr. Mars on his channel. Now, today we're talking about Howler, one of my, I've always been a fan of, I always say, like, my spirit animal would be the werewolf, right? Or the wolf. And because I just, ever since I was young, man, like, I just felt like that changing from the human nature into the wild beast and being able to do what the hell you want is, without any restrictions apart from the silver bullet, right? Or what have you. And I felt like that's what I wanted to be. I mean, like, I thought I had the silver bullet here, but let me just give you bad streaming. So this is what I meant by the silver bullet, right? When I was a kid, I was all into howling movies, right? My dad had it at the first one, and then second and third one I watched it myself. But I read the book it's based on, right? I actually read the book as like a 15, 16-year-old, and I was like, yeah, this is what I like. And then of course years later you had like Underworld, and I love that series. And of course there was controversy that was based on some sort of board game. And the other thing is, like, for me, I'm always like, if I like something, I like to put my own sort of ideas on it. Like, what would be more interesting to me if I was going to write about werewolves, or if I was going to write about vampires, if I was going to write about mythical creatures, right? So this is one of the most recent images that cover art, I should say, that our artist Luis Alejandro is working on, right? He was just saying, oh, I'm just putting some colors on there just to see what it looked like, right? Because this is what the wraparound cover is going to look like. And you've got let me see if I've got the other one here. Is it that one? No, let me just bring up the other one. And and then we'll look at the artwork as well. So this is the the one-sided cover, then you have the wraparound cover just before. So this is the logo and stuff, and we might turn it some other color at the moment. That's the working color for it. I kind of like the whole the red and black balance. I was one thing about this, I should tell you the story, right? It's basically, the story is about a mother and a son on the run, right? So they're on the run, and they set up a shop, a pizzeria, in Auckland, New Zealand, right? And then and so I'll bring up artwork from that as well, so you guys can see a bit of that. Here we go. So this is just this one it's a working cover that we're looking at doing. Let me bring it down to this one here. So this is their this is a pizzeria, and we get you get to have a look at about the interaction and the community, right? Where they're here in this small town, Maritai, in Auckland, New Zealand, a real place, by the way. And so because it's a real place, I had to look at do a lot of research about the area, what the trees and plants and buildings look like, and what you could do with it. And so there was a lot of research going into making sure that there was a bit of realism, right? Like even this fantail and Corphi, this is Corphi, it's a yellow bell type flowers that, you know, birds eat the sap from and so on. And, you know, and it's quite, you know, like normal. You can eat the little soft little thing in the, you know, in the middle of the stem, whatever you want to call it, of the flower. So they open up a wood fire pizzeria, and they're at Maritime Beach, and it's called the Jasmine Summer Cafe and Bar. And so, you know, you've got, I had to look into it, like, you know, what sort of wood fire, you know, kind of pizza oven I would want and stuff. And then of course Louise did an amazing job of like creating this this kitchen that I gave him, like, you know, went this is how it's going to set up and all that, because I've worked in the kitchen for a few years of my life, right? Probably about maybe 7-8 years, and in bistros and, you know, in restaurants and so on, in hotels as well, hotel kitchens I should say, right, in the chef's area. And so I wanted to kind of like brings that sort of like you know, kind of my past into, you know, bring a realism into and dealing with customers and so on. So we have this one page here kind of showcasing just their work environment and you know, kind of setting up what's going to happen. So you've got Shayla here, right, named after one of my family members, extended family members I should say. And so you know, you've got, she's kind of like the girlfriend, love interest in this, and then you've got Alicia, who is here. Let me pop it up. That's, whoops, let me grab that out. There we go. So that's Alicia there, you know, who's the mother of Isis, right? And she's Italian, and so she's she and Isis, the son, is under, you know, kind of like setting up business elsewhere after being chased out from Australia, and now they're here in New Zealand, and now they're just trying to, you know, be part of the community, you know, create a life for themselves, a new life, right? Now, one of the things about the story is that there's going to be a lot of you know, a lot of creatures of the night kind of thing, and that allows for us to, you know, really expand, for me to really expand into the let's say stuff like, you know, mythical creatures and elements that are out there in the world that we haven't really, you know, seen a lot of in you know, in comics as such, because it depends on, you know, unless you're from that country, people want to write about that country's, you know, mythology, or if people are aware of that mythology, then they would know. So, you know, you got something like this, right? A water horse from let me just check here, you know, water horse, and it's from, let me bring it here. So it's this thing here, right? You've got something like this, I can, you know, we can use in our story because it's about mythical creatures, and so you can have something really interesting and sort of stuff like this. So whenever I watch stuff like yokai, right, from Japan and anime, they have all these different variety of creatures and stuff, and of course that's their mythology, that's kind of their you know, belief system, you know, ghosts and goblins and so forth, you know, in the European sense. So you have all these interesting looking you know, creatures that are out there, and these are some of the elements I'm looking at bringing into this new story that we're going to be telling over like a 12-issue series with, like, you know, 3 different arcs, or 4 different arcs I should say. And so with stuff like this, it's going to be interesting, and I think for me, as you know, it'll be interesting introducing these characters and these creatures into the story about mythological creatures and about werewolves and vampires. But, you know, so the question here is, like, you know, when you come to the story, how many creatures do you talk about, and how many, you know, how many you leave out? And so for me, I've been kind of thinking like, well, what's out there, or what works when we go do this? So there was you know, the stories, you know, like I said, is about the mother and son, right? And they're living here in New Zealand after being, kind of chased out or run away, kind of on the run from Australia. And the question is, why are they on the run, right? Who are these people? And and that's the concept around this. The outline behind the story is like, who are these people? Why are they running? Who's chasing them? And where are they going? Or what is going on? What is their motive? And that's the kind of questions you have to ask yourself when you're writing a story, or when you go to a movie, right? I mean, I watched a movie last night, which classed itself as a horror, which was basically like a art house kind of like pointless movie about a kid growing up that really didn't deliver on what the genre was. So with this one, this is a mythological horror fantasy story that we have, and you get to I mean, I get, like almost like feel like I get the privilege of bringing these characters to life in our comic book, right? And this the series, and so trying to showcase how what these creatures are, right? What's their mythology, where they come from, who are the people that believe in them. But one thing, I found interesting was reading up on them is why people believe what they believe about them. Are they good? Are they bad? Are they benevolent, right? And good or bad, right? There's no sort of you got stuff like Anansi, which people ever know a bit about because of American Gods, right? That TV series with Neil Gaiman is the creator of that, and that book it's based on, and so here with the African legends, you got Anansi the spider god, right? And how they depict it. Now because I'm writing a fantasy series, which is fiction, right? It's fictionalized. It's not it's based on these characters, but I get to kind of put my twist on them, and without actually kind of destroying the legend of it, but like just kind of like adding to the lore in a modern way, which is what I find, when you're writing comics, there is no kind of like, there's no rule to what you can do with comics, apart from making sure it's a good story, and that, you're taking, you allow people for the next, however long it takes to read that comic book, escape from, their reality, right? To go into this other, place that you've created for them, these other characters or creatures that they can think about, or just see, live through, whatever, right? These are not like these are not stories to live your life by. These are just entertainment, to just for the next half an hour, so you get to enjoy reading, or however long, depending on how quick your reader you are, right? You get to see all these different things. I find, like, when I was looking at, because I was like, I could just write a werewolf and vampire story. Or what if I really expanded on the idea of that, about human history, human's relationship with, like, human relationship with, sorry, I didn't realize it was so small, right? Human relationship, yeah, Chimera, right? Exactly. It's just interesting to see how, we have this whole amazing, huge place that all our creatures at one point are. I mean, not every single one, but there's a, in one of the other chapters, we have we showcase these. Let me just bring that away from there. Steve. We plotted out 2 issues all at the same time, so you can see here Alicia, and then just her work. And this is just some of the plotting out what we want to do with the story. You've got here like our 2 issues of storyboarding, right? And just working out panel setups, lettering, and so on. But one thing I want to show was, I think it's this one, or it might be in another. Right, here we go. So stuff like this, I get to play around with, chariots and stuff, because we're looking at like a 200-year type story where I get to really really delve deep into places around the world. Like, this is an actual place. This story is kind of like based on a dream, right? Another one of those dream stories, right? That I've just built upon. So we get to look back. What was like travel like 200 years ago, right? And so they don't have cars, right? And they don't have planes. And so how do people travel? And so we put in like carriages and horses, and just different ways of like, of travel. And the other thing was, how long does it take to get somewhere? That's one thing that I've had to like relook at resizing the map of Zoolandia, which is a fantasy parallel world story we're telling with fantastical creatures and sword and sorcery. It's like, well, you could walk in 5 days, like, well, or 5 hours. Like, that's a bit too close, because that could cause a lot of conflict if we just get over there in half a day. But not even half a day, like quarter of a day, right? And so, this is the first time we've actually plotted out 2 issues at the same time. And that's the reason for that being is that I was trying to figure out, I wanted to make sure that that what I was doing with the story, it was leading the way it needed to go, kind of like, so I could see myself visually. Is the story too slow? Is the story too fast? Or is it just the right pace? So, I want to show this little piece here. So this is, even though it's kind of like just like, pencil like outlines and stuff. This is an underground. This is a conclave, right? This is where they hold the creatures. You don't get to, you don't see what's going on here that much, but like basically, over here you got all these cages and people. All these mythical creatures, whatever they're, the winged ones. The ones that are like, that are like snake god, creatures, or or 4-footed or bipedal, all that stuff, right? Are they fish creatures? How do these people, the conclave, house them, right? And so in this situation, the conclave is this mysterious organization who kind of, gets these creatures, right? And houses them and so forth, to keep them out of the world. And so, but the reasoning is, why do that? So yeah, it's kind of, for me, working on this is sheer pleasure, because it just shows, I get to, expand upon another facet of my interest as a fan, right, of these things, as someone who's like interested in these sort of stories. Like, I love fantasy, sci-fi, and mythology, and I love documentaries. I like learning about creatures. I like learning about other people. I like learning about places around the world. And so this kind of like brings all that in, because I now get to learn a bit about Italy, right? For another story, I'm learning a bit about France and putting that into the story. So, one of the greatest thing about this was like realizing that this place I dreamed of, which was like the conclave, was kind of the first thing I dreamt of, was that, and that's where that story expanded from, right? Actually, no, sorry, apologies. Basically, it was about the dream I had. It started, this kind of like a shack, like a house in the woods, and these 2 people coming to, attacking this family, and there's a baby over there, right? And so as you read the story, you learn about, I bring that into the story, and then afterwards I was like, well, why would these people be hunting, going after a baby? And that's how it expanded into the conclave. So I wrote a whole, like a 2-3 pages of like what the conclave is, how do they start, who are they, and how does it fit into the Plunge universe, right? Because all these stories, are part of the Plunge universe, the ever-growing story and ever-growing world, I should say, of that universe, right? Where, we have superheroes, we have vigilantes, we have demons and angels, we have magic, we with people who just go around, as hitman, right? That's their job, right? Carry out that sort of thing, and so yeah, and that the character there's called Matthew, who's the hitman, right? So this is an ever-expanding world, and this kind of plays into that. But one of the things behind, about Howler that one of my other artists suggested was, well, which he didn't know that this was where I'm going with it. But he just said, well, why don't we bring one of our characters from, or what happens if we bring one of our characters from our fantasy world of Zolandia into this? And I said, oh, that sounds like a good idea. I know what I could use it in this story. And I expand a bit more on that in the interview I did with the artist Louise, and it's here on on this channel. And that was the last live stream that we did. Now, one of the other things about this is like learning about other cultures, right? And learning about their own histories and stuff. Like I mentioned, the creatures from those worlds and their past and mythology. A lot of times, some of these creatures were worshipped as gods, and sometimes they were like just evil and incarnate, right? That was like the boogeyman to scare the kids to do right. And then also, there's the ones where they're the people, they're the creatures that helped you if you got lost in the forest, or the creatures that got you lost in the forest, kind of thing, right? And so that's been really great, sort of like discovering all that. And then also the other thing is there's certain things, when you got when you want to go for like a teen plus book, there's certain things you can't show that are a part of that creature's element, right? I noticed that one of the creatures was very naked, right? The mythology is very about that thing being very naked. And I'm like, okay, so there's something we got to change about that without taking it away from it. So, and that meant that we had to create a uniform that the Conclave wore, right? And so that meant that you could have that creature there and use it as a footnote, go, hey, this is who this, that's what they are. And or in one of the other cases that have 4 arms and like 2 pairs of arms, right? How do what would that creature do in a fight, or what would that creature do with interacting with other people when you got friggin' arms flying around everywhere, or 2's folded up and the other 2's doing something? So what would that be like in a fight? So these are things that you kind of like question yourself and ask yourself, if this happens, what's the response to that action reaction, right? And also, well, do you need to react in that situation? And if you did, how would you? So I find like writing comics is like so freeing, because there is no kind of like a budget constraint. Of course, there is one when you go to get to publish, try to publish the print, and then get it out there into people's hand, and for the artist to get paid. And for me, whatever, I got to get the printing costs and all that sort of, and it's kind of that's where it comes. But at the moment when you're creating these things, you're just free to create them, because there's no like, oh, you got to have a helicopter shot here, and that's going to cost you 10 grand to make, or 5 grand, whatever it is, in whatever type of helicopter you're using to have that fly through, right? Or, oh, I need a Mustang, like as you can see here, with Howler's car, right? I mean, sorry, the car there, right? IOS's car, and he's got Howler written on there. It's like kind of like a thing, and it's just to have these cars there, and you can draw whatever cars in there or whatever plane, and there's no cost to that. It's just knowing that you can do that, be able to do those drawings of those things. And so, whereas like if you like even like creature effects, right? If you like really, if you think about it, if you're going to do a creature effect, uh, with a werewolf or whatever special effects you got, it's going to cost a lot of money. However, the freedom of comics is that you can just get somebody to draw it who's capable of drawing them, right? And you get to put that, together without any sort of like budget constraints as such. And that's a great thing. And like, you can have the greatest looking sword in the world, and you don't have to pay to get it made, so you can show it on a screen, right? Now, I'm gonna finish off here just talking about a bit about like I said, it's only a short stream, but I want to show you what we got coming up soon, and that is our comic book. Are you popping up? Oh wait, hello. Okay, let me just refresh this. It was there before. Here we go. IndieGoGo, right? So IndieGoGo is right now available in digital. Right? So you can buy the digital. We released this in Kickstarter last year, and it was kind of like it barely covered what the cost of printing and stuff. And so I thought we'll re-release it as a 3-issue, 3-cover set, right? Release it as like you could buy cover A or cover B or cover C, right? And on IndieGoGo. So that's where we're heading with this. But I just want to, the reason I brought this up, I just want to show you the, the artwork. And, this is an all ages comic book. That's one thing to remember. It's an all ages comic book, 32 pages, full color. And by going to IndieGoGo, we're going to be adding some extra, removing some pieces that we had for Kickstarter and adding more work in there, especially for IndieGoGo. So it's like an IndieGoGo print, and what you're getting is an IndieGoGo version of this comic book. Of course, if you don't know what IndieGoGo is, it's a crowdfunding site, IndieGoGo.com, and also putting a new cover on it. Previously it was a poster that we put out there, but now this is using this as a main cover for it. That's the other thing how this is an IndieGoGo release. It'll be this cover. At the moment, I've got like one of our artists looking at like working on a cover or a pin-up, depending on how it turns out. We'll either include that in the comic book, or we'll put it on the cover. So that could be like cover B and stuff. And at the moment, we've had let me just check if I've got the folder open, but we've been looking at, give me one second, looking at, here it is, looking at the various various ways we can put this comic out, and with IndieGoGo in mind, and sort of bring up like showing here. So this is where we're looking at putting the we've basically got 2 spare pages in here by removing the previous one, and also we've got half a page, and kind of like thinking like if anybody wants to if they've got characters they want to like put in our comic book, was that option, because it's an all ages comic book. You got to make it child friendly, right? And so also the other thing is that with there's where you can put your name, get your name in there if you're a supporter through IndieGoGo and stuff. And as you can see here, right, like this, the freaking artwork is so beautiful in this, and the colors, was great. Kevin Zimmerman and Hugo Aquino. Hugo's the colorist. Kevin is the artist on this series. So as you can see, this is one of the art. We were looking at trying to figure out, which covers to use. Let me just pop this out here so you guys can see the options that we've got. And I'm not sure which one to use at the moment, because I'm going to take it to Facebook and kind of go, hey guys, what do you guys think of this, and pick and choose which cover you think would be a great cover B or a cover C, right? Give me 1 sec. I think I'm just gonna pop around the corner and open up this file. I think it's just taking a bit of a moment to open up. It's quite a huge file because I get quite a high res for these things. So here we go. Just wanted to make sure I had it all. So I mean, like as you can see here, right, all the artwork he has done. All we're waiting for is like to get the pinup done, figure out what if I excuse me, if I what else I want to include here, and what changes I want to make to letters and so on, and just showcase some other art we've got as well. and there's another option of we've got like a action figure thing that we did, and thinking of looking at getting that colored, and so that we can put that out as a cover as well. So that could be like a cover C or something, the action figure cover that we had like a 3-dimensional thing. So there was like 4 or 5, I think 4 images, so you could see on from the top, from the side, from the back, and so on, and from underneath to see what the character looked like, because it was going for like designing an action figure for it. So this is this is one of the characters. So that was that's cover A, of course, and then there was this deciding if this would be cover B, and we did this one as a trading card last year. It's almost been a year. Yeah, July last year, August last year. Sorry, yeah, it's been 12 months since we put it on Kickstarter. And so just thinking like we'll put this out at as a cover, B or C, depending what my friends on and the comic creators on Facebook think, which would be which cover should we use. Of course, there is this kind of like at the moment I'm trying to getting one of our artists to who's doing the pinup to figure out how, because usually I would put like the logo on the character. That's why you see there's no logo on the character. And so I was trying to figure out, and I thought like, what, I'm not good at perspective, so I'll just get one of my artists who's really good at perspective to put the logo on there. And so that will allow us to have another option. So at the moment we basically have about 4 options for cover. Yeah, I think about 4 options already, but it's like, okay, which cover out of these 4 do we choose to be the next 2? Because we only going to do 3 covers. Because that's the other thing we realized was with this, it's like offering too many covers kind of like it can be distracting because people don't have to choose. It's like McDonald's, I'll have A, B, or C, right? A Big Mac, a cheeseburger, or hamburger kind of thing, right? And the more you go, the higher it costs to get it printed, and there's more options you have, the more budget gets larger and larger, because at the end of the day you got to whatever you're offering, you got to make sure you're able to have the money to pay for that yourself even before it gets to Kickstarter, because all Kickstarter is doing is helping you choose, letting you know that yes, people want this and people will pay for that. Now you don't have to put it out of your pocket. However, you still have money. You have to have money in your pocket in case you're short for, right? So this is this is basically what we're going to be looking at getting out soon, because it's it's completed, it's colored, and I'm hoping that people will respond. People have been responding really well to the the digital side of this, and putting this out there. They love the cover and stuff, and so I thought it was pretty cool to put in Incredigo. I call it IG, right? It's for short, but Incredigo there. So as you can see behind me, right, that's her there, right? And so this was done by volunteer students who decided to help with this one. So that's all I got. As I mentioned, that's all I got to talk about today. So you can actually, the link there is in the chat to get the digital version. It's 32 pages, full color, and this is the interior is basically the Kickstarter version, right? And that's what we're putting out as digital for that. However, when we go to IndieGoGo, the digital will be the IndieGoGo version, as well as the print version will be for IndieGoGo. Bye for now.